Welcome again to Math 800 Pre-Algebra. Today we are doing section 5.1, Reading and Writing Decimal Numbers. Our objectives: 1. To write parts of a whole using decimals. 2. To identify the place value of a digit. 3. To read decimal numbers. And 4. To write decimals as fractions or mixed numbers. Decimals are used when a whole is divided into 10 equivalent parts or other powers of 10, such as 100, 1,000, or 10,000, and so on. In other words, decimals are fractions with denominators that are a power of 10. Here is a diagram. In this box, in this one whole, there are 10 equal pieces. One of the pieces is shaded in. Normally we would call this the fraction 1/10. We could also write this as the decimal 0.1. 1/10 of the square is shaded. Basically, the fraction 1/10, the decimal 0.1, and the word 1/10 all mean the same thing. The dot in the point 0.1, this dot or point here, is the decimal point. It separates the whole numbers, which are on the left, from the fractions, which are on the right. There can only be one decimal point in your number. Also, you cannot mix and match decimals with fractions. Your final answer either needs to be a fraction or a decimal. It cannot combine the two. The decimal point separates the whole number part from the fraction. The place value names for fractional parts are similar to those on the whole number side, but they end in a THS or a THS. For example, here is our place value chart. Previously, we'd only worked to the left of the decimal point, starting with ones, and then tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, and 100,000s. Now we're going to go to the right of that decimal point, and we're going to have tenths, or 1/10, hundredths, 1/100, thousandths, 1/1000, 10,000ths, 1/10,000, 100,000ths, 1/100,000, and so on. So decimals are just another way to write fractions. When you're reading them, the decimal point is read as and. That is the only thing it means, which is why you can't say 304 and 5/10. Two ands would mean two decimal places, and that makes no sense. Identify the place value of each digit of this. We have a 1, a 7, and 8, a decimal point, a 3, and a 6. And then we'll do a second number in a second. For the 1, 7, 8, decimal 3, 6, the 1 is in the hundreds place. The 7 is in the tens place, and the 8 is in the ones place. Here's our decimal point. This is separating the whole numbers from the fractions. The 3, there's one decimal. The first decimal place is 1/10 or tenths. Second would be hundredths, and so on. Notice there is not a oneths spot. A oneths spot would be a 1/1, which is the ones. We start with the tenths. The next digit is 0, then the decimal point, 00935. This first 0 is in the ones. This here is referred to as a leading 0. It is there to help indicate there was a decimal point. Myself, the book, and my math lab and Math Excel, we will all put the 0 in front of the decimal point. You are not required to do that, but I would highly encourage you to do that. Then we have our decimal point, and then this 0 is in the tenths place, and then this 0 is in the hundredths place, and then we would be in the thousandths place, and then 10,000ths, and then 100,000ths. How do you read decimal numbers? Step 1, read any whole number part to the left of the decimal point as you normally would. Then say and to represent the decimal point. Then read the rest of the decimal, everything that's from the decimal point to the right, read it like a normal number, and finish with whatever place value it ended in. Read the decimal 16.9. To the left of the decimal is 16. The decimal is and then to the right is a 9, and it's in the tenths place. So this number is read 16 and 9/10. 482 decimal point 35. To the left of the decimal, we have 482. Then we have the decimal, which is an and then to the right of the decimal, we have 35, and it ends in the hundredths place, tenths, hundredths. So the number is 482 and 35 hundredths. Now we'll read 0.063. To the left of the decimal is just a 0, so there is no whole number part. So we don't say a whole number and we don't say and, we just start with the decimal part. This is 63, and it ends in the thousands place. So we just say 63 thousandths. Another caution about the word and. The word and only means the decimal point. You can't say 405. That would mean 400, a decimal, and then 5 in a decimal point, but you didn't tell me what place value. It can't be done. The and is for the decimal point, and that's the only way you can use it. Now we will write a decimal as a fraction or a mixed number. First, determine the decimal point, because that tells you back that up. First, the digits to the right of the decimal point are the numerator of the fraction. So just look at all the numbers that are to the right of the decimal. That will be the top or the numerator of your fraction. Then look at the denominator. If it's the tenths place, the denominator will be 10. If it's the hundredths place, the denominator will be 100. If it's the thousandths place, the denominator will be 1,000, and so on. Another way to do it is simply count the place values. If there's one place value, there's 1 0. There's two place values, there's 2 zeros. 3 place values, 3 zeros, and so on. If the decimal has a whole number part, then it is written as a mixed number, and that whole number in the decimal is the same as the whole number in the mixed number. Let's look at some variations between fractions, the decimals, and how we'd read them. This is the fraction 4 tenths, which we read as 4 tenths. It is the decimal 0.4. That's in the tenths place. This is negative 9 over 100. We would read that as negative 9 hundredths. So we have a negative, and the 9 is in the hundredths place, tenths hundredths. This is 8 over 1,000, or 8 thousandths, which is 8 in the thousands place. And lastly, this is 832 over 1,000, which is 832 thousandths, which is 0.832, ends in the thousands place. Notice, 1 decimal place, 1 0. 2 decimal places, 2 zeros. 3 decimal places, 3 zeros, and again 3 decimal places, 3 zeros. The number of decimal places tells you how many zeros are in your denominator, because the decimal place is the tenths, hundredths, thousands, etc., and that tells you what your denominator is. Now we will write the fraction 0.19 as a mixed number, or a fraction. 0.19 is 19 hundredths, because it ends in the hundredths place. So that's 19 over 100. Again, notice there were 2 decimal places, which means we have 2 zeros. 4.0099. We have a 4, which is a whole number, so we know we're going to have a mixed number. The last digit is in the 10 thousandths place, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10 thousandths. Therefore, the 4 stays the whole number, this 99 is our numerator, and we're going to have 10,000 for our denominator. Again, count the decimal places. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how many zeros you'll have. 1, 2, 3, 4. Write 0.75 as a fraction or mixed number in lowest terms. This is 75 hundredths, so 75 over 100. This can be simplified. We can divide both the top and bottom by 25. 75 divided by 25 is 3. 100 divided by 25 is 4. This is in lowest terms. These are both correct, but this one isn't finished. 3/4 is the final finished answer. A quick note about simplifying decimals once you've converted them to fractions. All decimals have a denominator of 10, 100, 1,000, etc. They're powers of 10. The only thing you can divide them by are combinations of 2's and 5's. So when you're simplifying, all you have to check is if you can divide it by 2 or 5 or some combination. Sometimes what students do is just start dividing by 5, and they do it as many times as possible, and then they divide by 2 as many times as possible. So in this case, you could have divided by 5 twice. You would have started dividing by 5 and gotten 15 over 20, and then divided by 5 again and gotten 3 over 4. Write 18.105 is a fraction or mixed number in lowest terms. Our final decimal place is in the tenths, hundredths, thousandths place, so our denominator is 1,000. The 18 was a whole number, so it stays a whole number, so we have 18 and 105 over 1,000. Both the top and the bottom, the numerator and denominator, can be divided by 5. Notice when you're simplifying, you're only simplifying the fraction. You are not simplifying the whole number. The 18 stays the same. 105 divided by 5 is 21. 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. Double check again to make sure you can't divide any more by 2 or 5. We cannot, so this is in lowest terms. 18 and 21 over 200. Just to recap, this chart is very important. It is critical that you can go from any one of these to the other. I should be able to give you the word name 4/10. You should be able to either write a decimal or a fraction. I should be able to give you the fraction negative 9 over 100. You should be able to read it as either a word name or as a decimal. And I should be able to give you a decimal, such as 0.008, and you should be able to read it as words, 8 thousandths, or as fractions, 8 over 1,000. Note, I did not simplify these just to illustrate the relationship between the decimals, the names, and the fractions. Again, you need to be able to go back and forth from these various forms. That concludes section 5.1. Your next steps are to complete the worksheet for section 5.1. Then check the key for that worksheet or come to class and we will go over it. Then complete the online homework for section 5.1 through My Math Lab. And lastly, get started on section 5.2.